Because of the COVID-19 rules and regulations, we feel that we cannot safely open the house for tours. So we brought some items out for you to see and for you to learn about here at the farm. The farmhouse is completely packed with artifacts and items that have been donated by people of the area. So this is really the People's Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know any of the history of the farm?
I did, but I don't remember. It's been a while, but I've been through the house several times.
Okay. Well, the land was bought in 1817, and the Jordan family got here in the spring of 1818. They traveled during the winter with Conestoga wagon so they could get here in time to plant crops in the spring. But when they got here, there was one big problem. Trees.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking trees, we're talking trees.
Yeah.
This whole area, the whole 320 acres, was forest. So before they could do anything, they had to conquer some of the trees.
Mm-hmm.
So the first building built was the barn, and these were trees that were all cut by hand. Using buck saws, they had the big cross-cut saws that were two-man powered. Any axes they brought with them. This is a small broad axe. This was used for smoothing the tree trunks after they got them cut down. They could stand on them and then very carefully cut the sides. Now a lot of the broad axes, instead of being set straight on, are set off center. So that way you can stand and cut a little bit easier than with something that's set straight on. Broad axe because the blade was much wider than the axes we think of today. And your basic buck saw, that could be adjusted. Tension here to adjust your blade, and it could be used one or, if need be, two-man. Anything they wanted, they basically had to make themselves. Silverware spoons, those were made. This is a grain scoop that someone has made. Any type of bowl or container, those were made. These are all jobs that the men would have done. Since today is Father's Day, I've chosen some items that the men would have been using. And the stool in front of me is one that someone has made. And it's typically just basically made with the cut of log. 4 holes are drilled into it and your legs added. Tables, chairs, benches, they were all made this way. Quick, easy, simple, but very, very sturdy. And even the flooring on a lot of the log cabins were made this way, with the logs basically split in half and then fastened in with pegs. Now when the barn was constructed, once you go in there, please look at the beams, the skeleton structure of the barn.
Yeah.
These are all hand carved from the trees. If you take one of the beams, stand it on end, you get an idea of how massive these trees were. There were no nails used in putting the barn together. It was all done by augered holes and a wooden peg pounded in. So it was strong. Once they were able to get some areas cleared for crops, your sickle side, this was used for hand cutting grain, straw, whatever. They had the larger two-handled ones that you could use to cut. And of course, your basic cookware was your cast iron. And in the barn there is a lot larger one. It's about a, if I remember right, it's a 20 gallon.
20 gallons?
It's big. It's big. This was in my family for many generations. It was used for cooking, for washing the clothes, and when that day came, it also served as your bathtub.
There you go.
So cast iron was very, very important and essential to the people of the time period. Again, as time went on, men developed different trades. This is a shoe last, and if you notice, it's what they call straight last. There's no right or no left. You wore your shoes, right, left, take them off at night, you switched them around. So that way you got more miles out of them, and they wore a lot straighter.
They must have been uncomfortable, I would think.
Yes and no. Believe it or not, the shoes from years gone by were really much more comfortable than what we have today. Because they fit your foot, especially at the ankle up. They gave more support, they were more comfortable. A potato masher. This was an all-purpose tool for the kitchen. Here again, the men and boys would carve this in their spare time. Mashing potatoes, mashing anything needed flattened or prepared. I have one potato masher cup that has a metal band around it. This way, it also serves as a nutcracker. And of course, for the men and boys, one of the most popular items that you carried with you at all times was a form of pocket knife. This could be used for many, many different things, as well as for carving. This is a chopper. Today we call them blenders or table knives, type knife. The American Indians, especially in Alaska, call them ulus. These are great for slicing. You don't slice, you roll to cut. But this is one that could have definitely been handmade. And of course, as time went on, the great ice thongs. With this, a man could carry a 50-pound block of ice into the house, put it into the ice box, which was
So glad you don't have them now.
no. But that served the purpose. A 50-pound block of ice would last roughly a week. And if the kids were good, they got to play with the ice at the end of the week when you put the next block in. These are window or sash guards for your casement type windows that had the weights in them.
Yeah.
You would raise your window and then put these under to keep them from slamming shut. Because they were known to either slam shut, you couldn't get them open, or once you got them open, you couldn't get them closed. But this saved a lot of window glass from being broken and shattered.
I imagine they used that a lot because no air conditioning. So.
Oh yeah. And this, Benjamin and Lynn Setter, groceries and meats from here in Brunswick, Ohio. Butchering was another thing that the men did, the men and boys. This is a necessary part of the citizenry in having a source of food. And excuse me. And this is a sifter for sifting flour, sugar, anything that you needed to break up for cooking. So we're very thrilled to have this. As for personal grooming, like I said, that cast iron kettle also served as your bathtub. The barn was fortunate. Right by the corner of the barn is a hand-dug well that's tapped into a spring, so there's constantly water flowing in it. So it had a good source of water. For personal hygiene, the shaving brush. You would take a mug, put a block of soap in it, add a little water, get your foam up good, and use it for shaving. And then for shaving, your good straight edge razor. This one's seen a few miles. I wouldn't want to even try to shave anything with this, much less a peach. because it would really tear up the face. But these were kept super sharp. My father used one clear up into his late 80s. And when they used the strop or sharpening pad, he could make it sing. And this, I was very surprised to see. This is a very prized item. This is a beautiful ivory mustache comb to keep properly groomed. And it does have a tiny insert into the dragon type mouth that's holding the teeth. And of course, toward the turn of the century, in the late 1800s, 1900s, no man would go out to do business unless he was properly dressed, which included a celluloid or plastic collar fastened with a collar button. This is so tiny. The only way I can really show you is to take off protective gloves. Just a tiny little piece. This one is glass. And it was inserted into the collar to hold it. And then you could wear a tie, whether it's a long tie or a shorter bow tie or a cravat over it. So you could be very, very properly dressed. And of course, to keep the hair in order, since barber shops were very, very few and far between, someone invented hand-powered clippers for clipping the hair. By using a comb and your clippers, you could get a beautiful haircut. And no house would be complete without a Sears and Roebuck catalog. This is a reprint of the catalog. If you couldn't find it in Sears and Roebuck, you really didn't need it. You could order anything from a house, complete with the instructions, the lumber, the hardware, everything you needed, your dishes, clothing, items, musical instruments, stoves, from parlor stoves to cook stoves, you name it, they had it. And like I say, if they didn't have it, you really didn't need it. And of course, once you were done using it, and it was outdated, it took a trip to the path out back, the do not linger wall, and it became the toilet paper. So nothing was thrown out. They were way ahead of us on recycling. If you needed recycling, they knew how to do it. Okay, I'd like to thank you for coming today. And since
where they come out with Sears and rubbish, because they would take that out back.
Oh yes. Since the areas have been doing
I'm around here.
schooling over the